Get a job and stop being a leech. That's what my daughter-in-law shouted in front of everyone. My son, my granddaughter, my pastor's wife, even little Jacob, who stopped chewing mid-bite with his bib covered in mashed sweet potatoes. The laughter died. The forks froze mid-air. My son Daniel blinked like someone had slapped him. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I didn't even flinch. I just smiled. Because Chloe had no idea. She didn't know that the house she paraded through in her stilettos was mine, or that the car she drove to her yoga classes had my name on the title. She didn't know that the old woman in the guest room was sitting quietly on top of $10 million. That night, I decided I was done playing poor. I had played small for 5 years. Ever since my husband Joe passed and Daniel, my sweet, naive Daniel, offered to have me live with him and his new wife. Chloe had seemed warm then, polite. She brought me peppermint tea in a porcelain cup on my first night, told me she wanted us to be like real family. She smiled a lot, hugged a lot. But slowly, little by little, she stopped hugging. She stopped asking how I was. And when Daniel wasn't looking, her mouth curled in ways that said everything her words didn't. Could you not leave your knitting on the couch? Do you really need to use the dishwasher for just your cup? Oh, I already gave your mail to Daniel. He said he'd take care of it. Small things. Tiny chips in a big wall. Until the wall cracked. And now, in front of 12 people, she decided to humiliate me. A leech. She said it like it was fact. Like I was some parasite, draining her dry. As if she hadn't been living under my roof, eating my groceries, decorating the home I paid off with framed quotes about self-worth and boss babe energy. Daniel didn't say a word. Not then. Not when my eyes met his, searching for something, anything. Not when I looked away and forced a smile. Not when Chloe scooted her chair closer to him and said, in a voice that was almost gleeful, "Some people need a little push, I guess." They moved on to dessert like nothing happened, but something did happen. Because as I rinsed the dishes that night, quietly, calmly, I realized I had been giving them a test. And they'd failed it. I had never told them how much Joe and I had saved, that I'd invested quietly after he passed, that I still owned the house outright, and had let Daniel take over payments just to feel responsible. They thought I was poor, a worn-out woman with gray at the roots and nothing but time and tattered sweaters. But they were wrong. They smiled when they thought I needed them, but turned cruel the moment they thought I didn't serve a purpose. So I smiled. I smiled because that was the moment it all changed. I'd sat through that dinner, through Chloe's smug insults and Daniel's silence, and I'd smiled. Let her think she'd won. The worst part wasn't what she said. It was what he didn't. Not even a soft, "Mom, that's enough," or a change of subject. Just silence. His fork scraping across his plate. His eyes on the table, as if he didn't know how much I'd given up for him, as if he hadn't once begged me not to sell the house after Harold died. "Just stay with us, Mom," he'd said, his voice breaking. "We'll take care of you." He meant it back then. I believed that. But people change. Or maybe they just grow comfortable letting others carry the weight. I rinsed the last dish and set it in the drying rack. The faucet dripped steadily. A quiet rhythm. Across the house, I heard Chloe laughing at something on her phone. That laugh that never quite reached her eyes. That's when I knew. She hadn't lost control tonight. She'd exercised it. Daniel had been her silence, her permission. This wasn't a careless insult. It was a test. She was seeing how far she could push, how much more she could take. I wiped my hands on a dish towel and walked quietly to my room. Sat on the edge of the bed. No shaking, no tears, just a single thought. Calm and cold. Enough. I pulled out my old planner from the bottom drawer, the one with Mr. Dev's business card, tucked inside the back flap. Dev and Marchand, estate planning and asset management. He'd helped Harold and me set up everything. Our accounts, our trusts, the real estate titles. After Harold passed, Mr. Dev called to offer help updating my beneficiaries. I'd declined at the time. Told him I wasn't ready. Now, I was. I dialed his number. It rang once. Twice. Dev and Marchand. This is Anna. Hello, Anna. This is Miriam Geller. Please let Mr. Dev know I'd like to schedule a meeting this week. Sooner is better. Yes, ma'am. I'll let him know right away. Do you want to give me any details for the appointment? No, I said. Just tell him I said, it's time. He'll understand. She paused. Yes, ma'am. I'll have him call you first thing in the morning. Thank you. I hung up. The next morning, I rose early, made my tea, sat at the window and watched the frost creep along the glass. Daniel didn't text. Chloe didn't apologize. I wasn't surprised. She thought she was the queen of this house, that she had secured her kingdom. But the deed? Still in my name. The accounts? Untouched and blooming. She didn't know she'd just lit the fuse on her own, unraveling. And Daniel, my son, my sweet boy who once built me a Mother's Day card out of macaroni and glue, was going to learn something too. That silence has a price. 5 years ago, when Harold died, I didn't cry at the funeral. Everyone thought I was being brave, stoic. But the truth was simpler. I had nothing left. I'd cried every night for 3 months before he passed. When the doctors said, palliative, I knew what was coming. I'd already mourned the life we'd built, the plans we'd made, the man who'd been my compass through every storm. So when the casket lowered, I just stood still. And Daniel, he held my hand the whole time, his grip tight, almost childlike. Don't sell the house, he whispered later. Move in with us. Let us take care of you. He meant it, back then. And I, stupidly, maybe, believed I was walking into a home. Instead, I walked into an arrangement. I gave them the house. Quietly, indirectly. I let Daniel think he'd been able to buy it after his wedding. I even gave him the down payment in a gift envelope, telling him it was from Harold's savings. But the deed never left my name. It was a test. I'd spent most of my life giving, raising Daniel alone when Harold was building the business. 2 jobs, night classes, no vacations. I missed school plays, birthdays, holidays. And when we finally got comfortable, I didn't cash out. I saved. I invested. For them. When Daniel got married, I gave them everything. Privacy, space, freedom. I moved into the smaller unit above the garage. 1 bedroom, a tiny kitchen, just enough room for me. Chloe said it was temporary, but she liked me tucked away. She used to smile back then, pour me tea, ask about Harold. That didn't last. The moment she realized I wasn't broke, and worse, that I might still have influence over Daniel, things changed. She stopped asking how I was, started commenting on my clothes. You wear that sweater a lot, she'd say, with a forced laugh. I smiled every time, played along. I let her believe I needed them, that I couldn't afford much, that I was grateful for the leftovers, and the condescending invitations. I wanted to see who she'd become when she thought I had nothing left to offer. And she didn't disappoint. Daniel drifted. At first it was subtle. He stopped coming up to visit, missed birthdays, then holidays. Soon he was just a, "Hi, Mom," in the hallway or a nod at dinner. Always busy, always distracted. I told myself it was work, stress, but I knew better. It was Chloe. She wanted me invisible, preferably elsewhere. And now, after 5 years of me pretending to be poor, pretending not to notice, she thought she could call me a leech. In front of my son. At my own table. She thought I was too broken to fight back. But I wasn't broken. I was patient. That morning, I pulled out the photo album I kept tucked in my closet, the one Chloe had never seen. There I was, 28, holding a hammer on the construction site where Harold and I built our first rental unit. 35, signing the deed to our 4th property. 40, shaking hands with a partner who'd help us build our investment firm. Years of grit, sacrifice, growth. None of it had been luck. I didn't need Daniel's charity. I funded his life. He just never asked where it came from. Now, Chloe would find out. And Daniel? He'd get a choice. To remember the mother who built his life brick by brick, or continue pretending I was just another bill Chloe wanted to write off. I first noticed the locked mailbox 2 months ago. It was subtle. A new silver padlock on the side gate that led to the mail slot, one Daniel had never used. I asked about it casually one morning while Chloe was pouring coffee. "Oh, that," she said, not looking up. We had some package thefts in the neighborhood. Just being cautious. But I already knew it wasn't about stolen mail. Because that morning, before they'd come downstairs, I'd seen her slip a thick white envelope from the pile and tuck it inside her purse. She didn't know I'd been awake. I moved quietly in this house. Years of motherhood had trained me to be background noise. The next clue came wrapped in lavender cardstock. A pamphlet. Glossy. Folded twice. Left carelessly, intentionally, on the kitchen counter. Navigating assisted living. Giving your loved one the support they deserve. The kind of thing no one ever accidentally leaves out. I didn't touch it, didn't move it. Just sat with my tea and stared at it, while Chloe clattered dishes behind me. "You know," she said after a pause, her voice light, "a friend of mine had her mother move into one of these places. It was honestly a blessing. For everyone. They had activities and little outings. And privacy." I didn't respond. She kept going. "It's just, people need stimulation at your age. A change of scenery. And sometimes it's nice to have your own space, right? My own space. In the house I paid for. She was testing me. Again. Seeing how far she could nudge the boundary, without it snapping back. But she wasn't ready for the quiet resistance of a woman like me. A few days later, I overheard them in the hallway. "Daniel, I don't know, Chloe. She's fine. She doesn't need..." "Chloe, you never want to talk about hard things. That's the problem. She needs structure. Routine. She just lingers, Daniel. Daniel, can we not talk about this right now?" I froze. Lingering. That's how she saw me. Like mildew, like something clinging to the edges of her curated life. I kept walking past the door like I hadn't heard a thing. That same week, I found a manila folder, tucked behind a stack of Real Simple magazines on the coffee table. It wasn't Chloe's usual Pinterest perfect display. She liked everything crisp and curated, minimal. This folder was tucked like someone had shoved it there quickly. I waited until I was alone, slid it out. Inside were printouts, directories, pricing charts, glossy brochures for senior facilities, a checklist titled, "When a Parent Becomes a Problem." Problem. That's when it hit me. Chloe's outburst at dinner wasn't an impulsive moment. It wasn't stress. It was the crescendo. She'd been orchestrating this for months. Little cuts, subtle erasures, a steady drumbeat of control disguised as concern, preparing Daniel for the moment she could present the eviction not as cruelty, but necessity. She was planning to remove me from my own life, and Daniel, my son, was too tangled in her web to see it. But I saw it, all of it, and I was done watching. It was cold that morning, the kind of cold that seeps into your bones and settles there. I stood on the back porch with a mug of coffee, watching frost bloom across the lawn like slow fire. The trees were bare. The wind was sharp. Chloe had just left for her stress relief yoga session. Daniel was in the upstairs office clicking away on his laptop. And me? I stood there, quiet, still, thinking. I'd spent my whole life protecting Daniel. When Harold got sick and our bills piled high, I took a third shift so Daniel could stay in college. I told him we were fine, while Harold was dying in the next room and our savings account bled dry. After the funeral, when he cried in my arms like a little boy, I promised I'd always be there. But maybe that was the problem. Maybe I'd made it too easy to believe I was invincible. I let Chloe think kindness meant weakness. I let Daniel believe that love meant I would endure anything. And I let myself believe that silence bought peace. But it didn't. It just bought permission. For Chloe to disrespect me, for Daniel to disappear, and for the people I loved to believe they owed me nothing but tolerance. I stared down into my coffee, its surface rippling with each gust of wind. Then I whispered it out loud, to no one but myself. Enough. Not in anger. Not even in pain. Just enough. I walked back inside, placed my cup gently in the sink, and went to the small drawer in the hallway desk where I kept Mr. Dev's card. I'd known him for nearly 30 years. He was discreet, sharp, loyal. Harold had trusted him. So had I. I dialed the number slowly. He picked up on the second ring. "This is Dev. "It's Miriam," I said, my voice steady. He hesitated a moment, then softened. "I've been expecting your call." I smiled. "It's time." He didn't ask for clarification. He didn't need it. "I'll have everything ready by tomorrow," he said. "Are you sure?" "Yes." "Then we'll move forward. Cleanly. Quietly. Exactly how I wanted it." I ended the call and stood in the center of the house they thought was theirs. The walls were covered in framed photos of smiles Chloe had curated, posed, polished. But they didn't know. The deed was still mine. The accounts were still mine. The power? Mine. I looked at the staircase, the one Daniel used to race down in mismatched pajamas on Christmas morning, the one Harold had refinished by hand. This house had been built on love, and now it was being maintained by control. I wasn't angry. I wasn't bitter. But I was done letting that happen on my watch. Mr. Dev met me the next morning in his quiet corner office downtown. The same office where Harold and I had signed our first property papers decades ago. He still kept a bowl of hard candies on the receptionist's desk, still wore those tweed jackets that looked like they'd outlived 5 recessions. "Mrs. Geller," he said, standing as I walked in. "Or should I say, Miriam, now that we're officially done pretending." I smiled, nodded, and sat. He closed the office door gently. The click sounded final. "I reviewed everything last night," he began, sliding a thick folder toward me. "The house is still legally yours. You never transferred the title, not even partially. It's listed solely under your name." I nodded. "I thought so. Your financial accounts are intact. 10 million in diversified investments, fully liquid if you want them to be. The trust you and Harold set up is untouched." He paused, studied me. "You ready for the rest?" "I'm ready." He flipped to the last page and pulled out a drafted letter. "Eviction notice, formally worded, perfectly legal. Serve it or don't," he said. "But this makes it real. 14 days to vacate. No wiggle room unless you want it. And if you want to add a cease and desist for harassment, I can draw that up too." I stared at the paper. "Not with doubt, with peace. I want it delivered discreetly," I said. "But it needs to land hard. I want Chloe to open it and realize this wasn't spontaneous, it was surgical." Dev smiled faintly. "I've already notified our courier." I leaned back, letting the weight of the moment settle. 5 years ago, I walked into their home believing I was stepping into a new chapter of family, of care. But instead of comfort, I became an accessory, a symbol of pity, a woman they dressed up for holidays and pushed aside for decisions. Chloe had made herself queen of a kingdom she didn't own. Daniel had drifted until he forgot who built the foundation beneath his feet. And now I would remind them, quietly, precisely, exactly what that foundation looked like when it stopped holding them up. "I'd also like you to review the power of attorney documents we drew up years ago," I added. "Chloe's name was never on them, but I want to be certain." "She was never listed," Mr. Dev confirmed. "Only Harold. When he passed, it reverted entirely to you. Good. No loose ends. No legal vulnerabilities." I stood to leave, pausing at the door. "What will you do after they go?" he asked gently. I thought of the roses I hadn't planted in years, the books gathering dust in my storage closet, the warm silence of a home not filled with measured sighs and sideways glances. "Live," I said simply. "Finally." He nodded once. "I'll handle the rest." As I stepped out into the morning sun, my heart felt strange, not light, not heavy, just certain. They wanted me to vanish. Instead, they were going to learn what it felt like to be erased. I hadn't expected it to escalate so quickly. But with Chloe, it never stopped at cruelty. It had to become greed. The very next morning, I walked past her office while she was on the phone. She didn't hear me. Her door was half closed, her voice low but urgent. "I know it's a fast turnaround," she said, voice sharp. "But if we list this week and push a private buyer through by next, we can close within 2. A pause. She laughed. "Yes, it's still technically in the family, but no one will contest it. It's just paperwork at this point." She was trying to sell the house. My house. The same one I'd built with Harold from the ground up. She thought she could sell it out from under me, pocket the cash, and walk away clean. I stood frozen, just outside the door. A part of me, an older version of me, wanted to storm in, raise my voice, ask her how dare she. But I didn't. I walked back to my room, picked up my phone, called Mr. Dev again. He answered on the first ring. "Something new?" "She's trying to sell it," I said flatly. "She thinks I'm asleep at the wheel." He exhaled slowly. "I'll file a cease and desist by end of day, and we'll alert the local title office. If she signs anything, we'll have a paper trail. It won't go through." "Good," I said. "And I want that included in the eviction paperwork. Let's make it clear. This is now fraud. She'll be served within 48 hours. I thanked him and hung up. Then I sat, and for the first time, I let myself feel it. Not rage, not betrayal. Pity. For her, mostly. Chloe had mistaken manners for helplessness, patience for ignorance. And now, she was about to learn that the woman she called a leech could file a fraud complaint with a single phone call and have half her life frozen by Monday. But I didn't do it to punish her. Not entirely. I did it because she crossed a line. She touched what was mine. And because of that, there'd be no soft landing. Later that day, I watched her float through the kitchen, humming. Not a care in the world. She didn't know yet. Didn't know that the listing she was planning was already flagged. Didn't know that the email she sent the realtor that morning had been intercepted and copied to my lawyer. She didn't know the world was about to shift underneath her. That evening, I went through the house room by room, noting what was mine and what she'd added. She'd filled it with glass vases and pretentious art prints. But the bones? The floors Harold installed, the beams we reinforced, the garden I planted after his chemo, those were mine. She couldn't sell memories. She couldn't list what didn't belong to her. And soon, she'd have nowhere to hang her overpriced paintings. Because the clock had started. 48 hours. Then the paper would land on the counter. And for once, Chloe would be speechless. I started packing their things the next morning. Not out of rage. Not spite. But principle. Every box I filled felt like reclaiming oxygen. The first thing I packed was Chloe's espresso machine. The $2,500 chrome monstrosity. She insisted elevated the kitchen. She used it twice a week. Spoke about it like it was a person. Always my machine, never ours. I cleaned it carefully, wrapped it in bubble wrap, and placed it into a box labeled "Appliances Fragile." I wasn't going to destroy her things. That's what she wanted. She wanted me to crack, to scream, to be irrational, so she could point and say, see why she needs to go? But I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction. This wasn't war. It was logistics. Orderly. Lawful. Quiet. Her clothes came next. Designer handbags in soft velvet bags. Shoes that had never touched a sidewalk. Blouses with tags still attached. I folded each piece with care. Her chaos had no place in the home Harold and I built. Daniel's things were harder. Not because of what they were. He lived simply. But because of what they represented. The boxes of his college notebooks I'd once helped him organize. His cufflinks. The photograph of us at his high school graduation, smiling like nothing would ever change. I wrapped them gently. Labeled the box with one word. Daniel. Not Dad and Daniel. Not family. Just Daniel. Because he'd made a choice too. Maybe not explicitly, but silence is a vote. And when Chloe called me a leech, and he looked at his lap, he cast his, I paused at the top of the stairs and looked down at the living room. The art on the walls, the imported rugs, the cold elegance Chloe had forced into every corner. None of it felt like home, but I could still remember how it used to be. The walls once held finger-painted masterpieces. Harold's chessboard lived by the fireplace. The air used to smell like bread and coffee, not lavender diffusers and tension. I let myself mourn it, just for a moment. Then I got back to work. By noon, I'd packed 8 boxes. I stacked them in the garage neatly. I'd already rented a storage unit in town, paid for a month in advance. I'd even arranged for movers, small local company run by a man named Rico who used to help Harold fix up rental units. I left nothing to chance. even called the utility companies, scheduled disconnection for the end of next week. It was all happening, on time, by the book, no yelling, no spectacle, just removal. A clean extraction of entitlement. And when Chloe found those boxes, she'd know. She wouldn't say it, not out loud, but she'd know what real power looks like. Not noise, not threats, but quiet, unwavering resolve. Sunday night, I heard the first crack. It was quiet, like most real damages. Chloe had just gotten home from her self-care brunch with friends. She breezed through the front door with shopping bags in one hand and her phone in the other. "Can you believe I found this on sale?" she called to Daniel, holding up a pair of stilettos. "Only $900. She twirled in the entryway, expecting admiration. Daniel mumbled something I couldn't hear. He didn't sound impressed. 10 minutes later, I was in the upstairs hallway when I heard her phone ring. Loud, shrieking ringtone. She answered, chipper at first. Then her voice dropped. "What do you mean declined?" Pause. "There must be a mistake. This card has a $15,000 limit. It's our emergency line. It's always been cleared." Another pause. "No, I don't authorize a cancellation. Who called and revoked it? This is fraud." I moved down the stairs quietly. Daniel was already in the living room, looking up at her from the couch. His expression was tight, wary. "What happened?" he asked. She turned on him like a storm. "Our emergency card. It's been shut off. The bank said it was revoked by the co-signer." "Who co-signed it, Daniel?" He blinked. "I thought it was just you." "Oh my God." She looked past him, toward me. Her eyes narrowed. I said nothing, just stood at the base of the stairs, calm as stone. It had taken me one call to the bank that afternoon. I had opened that line years ago, quietly, when Harold was sick, in Daniel's name, but under my credit. I never told them. I left it open just in case. Chloe found it. Of course she did. And used it. For handbags, for furniture, for emergencies that looked a lot like indulgence. But that line had always been mine. And today, I closed it. I stepped into the living room now, not flinching under her glare. "Everything all right?" I asked. She opened her mouth, closed it. Daniel looked between us. "Wait, were you the co-signer?" I met his eyes, held them. "Yes." Chloe looked like she might explode. Her lips parted to fire back, but she didn't know what to say, because it didn't make sense. To her, power was always loud, always announced. Mine never had to be. Daniel turned pale. You had access to that card all this time?" "No," I said gently. "I had control, and I let that sit. For the first time in years, the silence belonged to me." Chloe stormed into the kitchen, yanked open drawers, slammed them shut. Looking for what? I didn't know. A receipt? A reason? A weapon? But there was nothing. Because I didn't need to yell. I didn't need to justify. I just needed to start pulling threads. And Chloe was starting to feel the unraveling. I woke before sunrise Monday morning. The house was still. Too still. Chloe had barely spoken the night before. Daniel had tried to smooth things over with the usual quiet excuses, but even he seemed to realize something irreversible had shifted. By now they must have both sensed it. Something was coming. But they had no idea it had already arrived. I dressed in my usual soft cardigan and jeans. Nothing dramatic. I made my tea, watered the roses out back, and laid the stack of documents on the kitchen counter. Neat, precise, lethal. First, the title deed. My name, clear as ever. Miriam Geller, sole owner. Second, a copy of the eviction notice, signed and notarized, dated, enforceable. Third, a bank statement, 1 page, $10.3 million in assets, a single line at the bottom, no withdrawals this quarter, and on top of the stack, a note, handwritten, simple. You said I was a leech. Turns out I was the foundation. This house is no longer yours to occupy. I didn't wait around. I tucked the key to the front door in my pocket and left through the back gate for my morning walk. The sun was just cresting over the rooftops. I felt light, not vindicated, not vengeful, just free. When I returned an hour later, I heard them before I saw them. The kitchen was in chaos, papers everywhere. Chloe, sitting at the table, her face pale and pinched. A suitcase open beside her. Daniel stood frozen, the eviction notice in his hands. Mom, he stammered. What is this? I stepped past him calmly, poured myself a glass of water. It's everything you never asked about. Chloe's voice was thin, brittle. You can't be serious. I looked at her. Oh, I am. You're throwing us out? She hissed. After everything we've done for you? I blinked slowly. What exactly have you done for me? She opened her mouth, then closed it. Daniel tried again. You could have just talked to us. You didn't have to blindside us like this. I did talk, I said softly. For 5 years. I said thank you. I said I was fine. I said nothing when your wife cut me down in my own kitchen. And you said nothing too. Chloe stood, her fists clenched. You can't just kick us out. I can, I said. And I am. I turned to Daniel, letting the weight of it land. 14 days. You'll find the rest of the instructions in the folder. Movers are scheduled. Utilities end next Friday. Daniel stared at me, broken. And Chloe? She didn't scream. She didn't throw a tantrum. She just sat back down, like a puppet with its strings cut, because the performance was over. And the audience, me, had left the theater. Mr. Dev arrived that afternoon, not with a briefcase or dramatic flair, just a leather folder, a polite nod, and the calm efficiency of a man who'd been preparing this moment for weeks. He greeted Daniel with a firm handshake, ignored Chloe's glare entirely, and sat at the dining table, the same table where I'd once been told I should work at Walmart. Now it was the table where I'd reclaim my house. Daniel looked at the paperwork like it was in a foreign language. This feels extreme, he mumbled. Mr. Dev adjusted his glasses. It's legal, it's fair, and it's final. Chloe paced behind him, her arms folded tight across her chest. She'd spent the past hour calling everyone, realtors, her mother, even the credit card company. No one could save her, because this wasn't a threat. It was a plan, executed perfectly. I've arranged storage for your belongings, I said calmly. The movers will be here Friday morning. You'll have until then to sort what you need. Daniel swallowed hard. You already paid for movers? Yes, and the unit is in your name. No strings, just a clean start. Chloe whirled on me. You think we're just gonna crawl out of here with our tail between our legs? You think you can buy dignity? No, I said. I can't buy dignity, but I can remove mine from a place it was never respected. She stared at me, incredulous. You're doing this for revenge. I shook my head. No, I'm doing it for peace. Mr. Dev slid a document across the table. This is a certified notice of vacate. 14 days. But as Mrs. Geller has graciously arranged alternative housing support, I recommend you move sooner. Daniel looked down, eyes red. Where are we even supposed to go? I handed him a folded printout. 3 nearby rentals, within your budget, month-to-month leases, all available immediately. I've already spoken to the landlords. Just call to confirm. Chloe snatched the paper from his hands, read it, scoffed. A 1-bedroom apartment? With no yard? I'm supposed to live like that? I tilted my head. It's a start. She looked like she might slap the words off my face. But she didn't. Because she knew. Every step had been planned. Legally. Logically. Without apology. Daniel sat in silence, his fingers gripping the edge of the table like it might float away. I looked at him, at the son I had once rocked through fevers, defended in school meetings, hugged through broken hearts. I'm not doing this to hurt you, I said quietly. But you let someone else decide what kind of man you wanted to be, and you let her decide what kind of mother I deserve to be. Mr. Dev stood. We're done here. You'll receive a follow-up email confirming the timeline. He nodded to me, then left. The door clicked behind him. And in that silence, I saw it. Daniel wasn't angry anymore. He was ashamed. She came back just after sunset. The house was mostly empty by then. The last of their boxes stacked in the driveway. Daniel had driven off an hour earlier in silence, refusing to meet my eyes. But Chloe? Chloe wasn't done. She stood in the doorway, arms folded, still trying to hold her shape in the ruins. Her eyes flicked around the living room like she was looking for something to anchor her. "I'm not here to fight," she said. Her voice was too smooth, too sweet. The same tone she used the day she first brought me chamomile tea and asked what it was like to lose a husband. I didn't respond. Just waited. She stepped inside slowly, like the floor might give way beneath her. "You don't want to do this," she said finally. "Think of Daniel." I tilted my head. "I am thinking of Daniel." She frowned. "He's devastated. He didn't know about the house, the money, the power games. You blindsided him." I stood. Not quickly. Not dramatically. Just enough to close the distance between us. "No," I said. "I gave him 5 years of grace. I gave you both a roof, space, silence. He chose not to see. He chose not to ask." Her mouth twisted. "So this is about punishing him? This is about consequences," I replied. "You opened your mouth at that dinner and called me a leech." And he looked away. She crossed her arms tighter. "He's your son, and I'll always love him," I said quietly. "But love doesn't excuse silence. And silence in the face of cruelty is complicity." Chloe shifted on her heels, jaw clenched. "You really think you're the victim here?" I didn't flinch. "No, I think I'm the correction." For a moment she didn't say anything. Just stood there, blinking, processing. She had spent so long painting herself as the victim of my presence. Now she stood face to face with the reality. She had no power here. Not anymore. She looked around the room again, like she might find some last thread to hold on to, some picture frame or memory to twist back into her narrative. But there was nothing left. Not for her. 14 days, I said. And you're already at 10. Don't waste them. Her eyes narrowed. You'll regret this. I smiled. Not kindly, just truthfully. No, Chloe, you will. She stood there a moment longer, hoping I'd crack, hoping I'd soften. But I didn't. She finally turned, her heels echoing down the hall, the same rhythm that used to announce her arrival like royalty. Now, just noise fading into distance. I waited until I heard the door close behind her. Then I walked over and locked it. Not out of fear, out of finality. The morning they left was overcast. No birdsong, no breeze, just stillness. Like the house itself was holding its breath. Their SUV was packed to the roof, boxes wedged behind fogged windows. Chloe stood by the driver's side door in a wrinkled blouse and sunglasses too big for her face. Daniel paced nearby, phone in hand, eyes down. They weren't speaking. I watched them from the window for a few minutes, then opened the front door, stepped onto the porch and called out, "Wait." Chloe froze. Daniel looked up, startled. I walked down the steps, a folder in my hand, cream-colored, neatly sealed. I held it out to her. She didn't move. "What's that?" I didn't smile. "Closure." She took it like it might burn her, but her hands were shaking. I turned to Daniel. "This is for her, not for you." He nodded, slow, eyes damp. "I know." I didn't say goodbye, just turned and walked back up the steps. Inside, I stood behind the curtain and watched as Chloe opened the folder. First, a printed email chain between her and the realtor, the one where she claimed to own the house through marriage and pushed for a fast sale behind my back. Second, a voice recording, captured from the smart speaker in the kitchen. Her voice clear as day. She's like a rotting sponge, just soaking up air and space. I want her out. Third, a letter on Dev and Marchand letterhead, warning of legal action should she attempt to sell, harass, or defame me again. Everything legal, timed, inarguable. From the porch, I saw her lips move as she read the letter. She blinked hard. Her shoulders fell. Daniel looked over her shoulder, saw the printout. Then the audio transcript. His head dropped. She slapped the folder closed, threw it into the passenger seat like it might infect her, then climbed into the car. Daniel hesitated. He walked toward the porch again. Not all the way, just to the bottom step. "I didn't know about the recording," he said. "I know. She said you were being dramatic. That you were imagining things." She was lying. He looked up at me, his face pale. "I'm sorry. I didn't say it's okay, because it wasn't. I didn't say I forgive you, because that wasn't earned. But I said what I meant. I loved you enough to let you fall. I hope you love yourself enough to get back up." He swallowed, blinked twice, then turned and walked away. No hugs. No promises. Just quiet. The SUV pulled out of the driveway. Slowly. No one waved. I stood alone on the porch and listened to the silence left behind. It was the loud